Okay, so our topic today is multiplying polynomials. And we've multiplied polynomials in the past, and the way that you're probably most familiar with is when you have a binomial times a binomial. And an example of that is right here, x plus 2 times x plus 5. And the way we multiply this is by using something called FOIL. And the letters in FOIL, F-O-I-L, stand for first, outer, inner, last. And so in case you don't remember this, I'll quickly go through one example. So to find the firsts, you're going to take the first term in this binomial times the first term in this binomial and multiply them. So x times x, which gives you x squared. Your outers mean out of the four terms, the two outer terms. So the x times the 5, which gives you 5x. I is for the inner terms, which means out of the 4, the two inner terms, which is the 2 times the x, which is 2x. And then L stands for last. So the last term in this binomial times the last term in this binomial. So 2 times 5 gives you 10. Very often when you do this, you're going to have like terms that you can combine. So you always have to look for those. If you have like terms, and we do, we have 5x and 2x, combine those, and our answer is x squared plus 7x plus 10. So that's FOIL. And we've done this before. We're going to learn how to multiply binomials times trinomials or 3 binomials. It's going to take a little bit of time, but it's very, very similar. If you've ever drawn the little rainbows, the first connects this one to this one. So x times x. The outers, x times 5. The inners, 2 times x. And the lasts, 2 times 5. So sometimes you may have drawn that on your paper to keep track of what got multiplied by what. We're going to go through a bunch of examples, some very simple to some more complicated. So the first one here is a binomial times a monomial. This is simple, just distribute. So I've got x times y is xy, and 2 times y, which is plus 2y. Very simple. Here I've got a binomial times a binomial, and whenever you have that, you're going to use FOIL. So my first, x times 3x, is 3x squared. My outers, x times 1, is plus x. My inners, 2 times 3x, is plus 6x. And the last, 2 times 1, is plus 2. Go ahead and combine your like terms, which is the x and the 6x, gives you 7x. So we've got 3x squared plus 7x plus 2. The next example is also a binomial times a binomial. And the only thing different here is that we've got a minus sign involved. When you're doing your multiplying, just carry your minuses with you, and that'll determine the sign of that particular term. So first, 2a times 3a is 6a squared. My outers, 2a times 4 is plus 8a. My inners, negative 5 times 3a is negative 15a. And my lasts, negative 5 times 4 is minus 20. Again, look for like terms. We have the 8a and the negative 15a. This combines to give you negative 7a. So our answer is 6a squared minus 7a minus 20. Now the last example on this page is a binomial times a trinomial. Now there's no word like FOIL, which is going to help you do a problem like this, but we're going to use the same concept. When we looked at FOIL, we were taking everything in the first, everything in the first binomial times everything in the second binomial. We're going to do the same thing. we're going to take everything in this first binomial times everything in this trinomial. Since I have 2 things here and 3 things here, 2 things times 3 things is 6 things. So when I do this, I'm going to have 6 terms. So when you start, you can always check how many terms you have. If you have 2 trinomials, you're going to have 3 times 3 or 9 terms. But then a lot of terms will combine as like terms, and your answer won't be as long. So this is what we're going to do. We're going to take the 3x times x squared times 2x and times 6. Then we're going to take the 1 times the x squared times the 2x and times the 6. We'll have 6 terms. Then we're going to combine like terms and we'll have our answer. So 3x times x squared is 3x to the third. 3x times 2x is plus 6x squared. 3x times 6 is plus 18x. Now to the 1. 1 times x squared is x squared. 1 times 2x is 2x. And 1 times 6 is 6. Now I just need to combine like terms. 3x to the third doesn't have another term that's similar. I have 6x squared plus x squared gives me 7x squared. I have 18x plus 2x, that's going to give me 20x. And then I have plus 6 after I combine all my like terms. Now, I want to turn to the next page because I want to show you a very common mistake students make. And this has already come up in some of the other problems where we should have FOILed and did not necessarily do that. And that is this. When you have a binomial, and that binomial is squared, it doesn't mean square this and square this. So this does not equal a squared plus b squared. It does not. All right? You have to FOIL this. The way to do that, and we'll do it right here, is to write it out twice so you don't get it mixed up. So it's a plus b times itself, a plus b. Now FOIL. A times a gives us a squared. The outers, a times b, gives us plus ab. The inners, b times a, gives us plus ab. And the last, b times b, gives us plus b squared. Combine your like terms. The ab plus ab is 2ab. So this gives us a squared plus 2ab plus b squared. And I know that some of you on some of our recent assignments had an expression like this and thought it was a squared plus b squared, but it is not. You're missing this middle part, very important part. All right? So let's do this example. A minus b quantity squared. This is a minus b times a minus b. First, a times a is a squared. Outers, a times negative b is minus ab. The inners, which is negative b times a, is minus ab. And then we have negative b times negative b is plus b squared. All right? Combine your like terms. So we have a squared. The minus ab and minus ab is minus 2ab. And then plus b squared. Now here's something you may notice. This has a pattern to it. All right? When we FOIL this, we do get the a squared and the b squared, a squared and b squared, but we have this middle term, which is 2 times this term times this term. All right? Same thing happened here. This is an a squared and plus a b squared. And the middle term is 2 times this, which is negative 2ab. And the only difference between how these two come out when you FOIL them is this one sign. They both are plus b squared. So if you remember this pattern, you don't have to necessarily FOIL. Now, this is also a very interesting pattern. And the reason why is how this comes out. So let's go ahead and FOIL this one. When we do our firsts, a times a is a squared. Outers, a times negative b is minus ab. Inners, b times a is plus ab. And the last, b times negative b is minus b squared. And notice, the inners and outers cancel each other. And so our answer is a squared minus b squared. And that's what's going to happen if your two binomials have the same two terms, but one is plus and one is minus. And you may remember this from Algebra 1. So let's do some really quick examples. And what I'm going to do is try and do these, not necessarily using FOIL, but using the pattern. So remember, this is x plus 1 quantity squared. And let's go up here to our pattern. It was this squared and this squared. And our middle term was 2 times this times this. All right? So let's go ahead and do that. So our first term is x squared. Our last term is 1 squared, which is 1. And that middle term is 2 times x times 1, which is plus 2x. The next example has a minus. So let's go back to that pattern. And remember, it came out the same way, except there's going to be a minus sign right here. Minus 2 times the first term times the last term. So let's go back here. It starts out, we have an x squared. And a 3 squared is going to give us plus 9. Remember, it's going to be a plus 9 because really it's negative 3 times negative 3. And in the middle, we've got 2 times x times 3, which is 6, but it's going to be minus. So minus 6x. And the last one, let's do this one using our pattern. Remember, if we have the same two terms, but one's plus and one's minus, the inners and outers are going to cancel out. And we're going to get the first squared minus the last squared. So when we do this one, this is going to come out to be x times x is x squared minus 5 times 5, which is 25. All right, there's one more example that I want to do for you, and that's if we have, for example, 3 binomials. All right, so let's do an example where we have 3 binomials. So maybe we have something like this. All right, x plus 2 quantity cubed. All right, and we need to simplify this. So really what this is x plus 2 times x plus 2 times x plus 2. Now, there's no way to multiply this all in one step. All right, you can only multiply 2 binomials at a time. So here's what we're going to do. We're going to do just 2 of them at a time. So I'm going to take these 2 right here. Doesn't matter which 2 because they're all the same. And I'm going to FOIL those. But I'm going to use the pattern that I just learned. All right? And that's going to give me x squared. And my last term is going to be 2 times 2, so plus 4. My middle is 2 times x times 2, which is plus 4x. So it gives me a trinomial. And now I still need to multiply that by one more x plus 2. Okay, so this is going to be a multi-step problem. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to multiply the x times everything in here and the 2 times everything in here. And I'm going to have 6 terms, and then I'll combine like terms. So x times x squared is x to the third. X times 4x is plus 4x squared. X times 4 is plus 4x. 2 times x squared is plus 2x squared. 2 times 4x is plus 8x. And 2 times 4 is plus 8. And now what I'm going to want to do is combine like terms. So I've got an x to the third I've got 4x squared and 2x squared that gives me 6x squared. I've got a 4x and an 8x, which gives me plus 12x, and then plus 8. All right? I'm going to show you a second example where we have 3 things to multiply. Okay, we have 3 things to multiply. You cannot do this all in one step. The way you do it is just how we did the last example. Pick any two and multiply them. Then multiply by the third one. So, for example, I can pick the x and the x plus 2, and to multiply that I would distribute. Or I can pick the x plus 2 and the x plus 3, foil that, and then multiply by the x. All right, that's kind of what I like to do, but you can do these in any order that you want. So I'm going to have x, and when I foil this, I have x times x is x squared. The outers, x times 3 is plus 3x. The inners, 2 times x is plus 2x. And the last 2 times 3 is plus 6. All right, combine my like terms. And I have x squared, 3x plus 2x is plus 5x, then plus 6. Now that I've finished that step, I can distribute. This is going to give me x to the third plus 5x squared plus 6x. One of the big confusions that students usually have is they try and distribute this to both of these. That's multiplying twice, and you don't want to do that. So if you're going to distribute first, distribute to just one of the binomials, okay?